What is traumatic invalidation, and why is it important that adult survivors of family scapegoating know about this form of trauma? That's what I'll be talking about in today's episode of Beyond Family Scapegoating Abuse, so stick around. Welcome to my channel. I'm Rebecca Mandeville, licensed psychotherapist, family systems expert, and author of Rejected, Shamed, and Blamed: Help and Hope for Adults in the Family Scapegoat Role. And today I'm going to be talking about traumatic invalidation. And this ties into an article that a guest author will be posting on my website, scapegoatrecovery.com/blog, if you'd like to read that this weekend when we put that out. And you can also sign up to my newsletter so you receive my articles weekly. And this is a very important subject because I would say, based on my research, nearly every person who has been a victim of what I named family scapegoating abuse, or FSA, has some symptoms of traumatic invalidation. And it's no wonder if you're in the family scapegoat role or the family identified patient role, you are likely going to feel invalidated. And when the invalidation in your family is chronic and constant, as has been true for many of my clients and research participants, you may be experiencing traumatic invalidation, yet have never even heard of this term. So I thought it would be important to talk about this today, and it pairs nicely with the article our guest author, Dr. Aaron Watson, will be publishing on my website this weekend. So what is traumatic invalidation? Traumatic invalidation is when you are constantly having your feelings, your thoughts, your beliefs, your accomplishments invalidated. And this, for the family scapegoat, will happen often early in childhood, during those critical years when the brain is developing and those neural pathways are connecting. It can start in later childhood or even in adulthood, but I found through my FSA research that this traumatic invalidation is typical in families that scapegoat, whether they are a dysfunctional family system or a narcissistic family system. And one of the pinnacles of confirming traumatic invalidation has occurred is people who have been told that they are a liar or are lying in their families when they're telling the truth. And any of you watching these videos who relate to being in the family scapegoat role know that you are not alone if you've been called a liar in your family. So many of my clients think that they're the only person these things happen to, and they're relieved when they're sad, but they're relieved when they realize they're not alone. This is one of the number one symptoms, so to speak, of the phenomenon of FSA. And the child is told that they are a liar. Other people are told the child is a liar, often right in front of that child. This type of chronic and constant invalidation can actually lead to trauma. Post-traumatic stress disorder or complex trauma symptoms are associated with traumatic invalidation, and there has been research done on this. We know from such research that traumatic invalidation is usually found in systems where people are marginalized. So this would be the family scapegoat, who is the marginalized person in the family system. I've given several examples of traumatic invalidation through past videos I've done here. And in many of my articles, for example, my video called "You're Faking It." This is when children report having physical symptoms. They're in pain. They have a stomach ache or a fever. a broken bone, or sepsis infection, in some cases just a few hours from death, actually. The infection's so bad. I've had reports of those kinds of serious illnesses, and they'll be told by their parent that they're faking it. That is a form of traumatic invalidation. A child might come up to a parent and say a sibling did so-and-so to them, maybe some inappropriate touching or hit them, and the parent will say, "You're lying." That is another form of invalidation that can be traumatizing to a child, to not have their truth, their reality, their experiences believed. Another form of invalidation that can be very traumatizing is when a child or an adult reports abuse, um, sexual abuse. A neighbor or a family friend was inappropriately touching them. They get the courage to tell a parent or to tell an adult that they think can help, and they are shamed and blamed for telling the truth. The event, the sexual abuse, may be denied. The child may be called a liar, or somehow the child is made to feel that they brought it on through their behavior, through what they were wearing, and get not only no support from the parent, but basically they get further abused, psycho-emotionally abused, for telling the truth about the sexual abuse. That can be traumatizing. As a scapegoat child, you may have had a lifetime of being invalidated, and you can't help but carry that into other systems. I was working with a client today, and she was wondering why she has trouble speaking up at work, sharing ideas, feeling that she has valuable things to say. And we eventually traced it back to the fact that some siblings had been very invalidating toward her in a teasing kind of way, but constantly and chronically. And in their minds, teasing, but in her child's mind, she took these things to heart, as children will do, especially if they're sensitive, empathic. And indeed, she's carried it into other systems now as an adult. So you might think about how you were invalidated as a child, if you were in that family scapegoat role. If you're watching this, I'm guessing you were and are. And how has this impacted you? Do you hesitate sharing your thoughts? Do you have imposter syndrome, one of the symptoms I mentioned in my book that's associated strongly via my research with FSA, family scapegoating abuse? Do you doubt your capabilities? Do you doubt your intelligence? Do you fear going after things in life because you're not sure that you have what it takes to perform, to see it through, to meet your goals? This may be traced directly back to invalidation that has had a traumatizing effect on you, that may have contributed to toxic shame you could be holding related to being in that family scapegoat role. And traumatic invalidation is something that needs to be assessed and addressed when you are on the road to recovery and healing from family scapegoating abuse. One thing that's very healing to people who are survivors of family scapegoating abuse is finding out they're not alone. So when you find a forum or a group or a community like here on my channel here on YouTube, and you're reading people's comments and you're realizing, oh my gosh, I thought this was only happening to me. I'm not alone. That's a form of validation. And that is what we call, in therapy land, as I call it, we call that a repair experience. Being able to talk to others and hear from others that they also were scapegoated, that they were invalidated by their family at very severe levels, such as being told you're lying or faking illnesses and such. being told you're crazy when you're not. And in fact, the parents may be acting very crazy with addiction, domestic abuse, assaulting each other, children being allowed to be physically aggressive with each other. But you're the crazy one. Actually, you may be the healthiest one in your family system. You may be an empath in the family system, which can make you a target for those scapegoating behaviors. So just to come out of the dark into the light, knowing, yes, other people have been through this, and it's a very specific kind of abuse, which is why I gave it a name during my research. It can have elements of narcissistic abuse if there's narcissism in that family system, but it has unique features that make it very distinct from any other kind of abuse. And having a name for this form of abuse, people write me from all around the world just thanking me for giving it a name, family scapegoating abuse, and learning what is common to FSA, what people experience in relation to FSA as informed by my research on. And most of all, that FSA can occur in families where there's not high narcissism. And I've said it a few times, I'll say it again, because I'm not sure people are hearing me based on some of the comments I get. We've been talking about this in the field of family systems for over 50 years. It started with research on what's called the identified patient, or the family IP. So this is nothing new to people who are working in the field of family systems. And we know that scapegoating happens in all types of dysfunctional family systems, not just narcissistic family systems. Having contact with other survivors of family scapegoating abuse is therefore critical, because that is a way to validate your feelings, your thoughts, your experiences. Same thing happens when you find a therapist or a trauma-informed coach or someone in the mental health field who gets it, who can hear you, who can validate your experiences, and who is not diminishing them, denying them, dismissing them because of their own issues with having to face the reality that there are parents and family members that do scapegoat, that do abuse each other, and that we need to be talking about it, and we need to be validating the experience of scapegoated adult survivors. Most importantly is that you reclaim your life narrative, disidentify from that scapegoat narrative, and reconnect with your true self, reclaim your truth, and validate your truth. Validate your story. You know these things happened. No one can tell you otherwise. You didn't imagine it. You didn't make it up. These things happen. And many of my clients, it seems like the universe conspires to help them in their recovery process when we start working together, because they'll have the most synchronistic types of things happen. Someone comes up to them who's been a family friend for years and apologizes and said, I was told you were crazy by your family, and I can see obviously you're not, and I'm sorry that I was drawn into that. This has really happened. It's rare, but those things happen. And that's a form of validation. You were not imagining these things. And that's why I believe what my clients tell me when they come in. I have no reason not to believe them. And I will believe them until I have reason to not believe them. Clear evidence. They need to be believed. My clients need someone to believe them. Part of the healing is right there. Someone is believing me. Someone is validating me. I am having my experience validated. And that is a critical part of healing from family scapegoating abuse. Sometimes just having words to describe things, events, experiences is very, very helpful when one is on this recovery journey, and recovering from family scapegoating abuse. And so I hope that having a name for what is called traumatic invalidation, because I don't see too much written about it, and I'm glad Dr. Watson will be addressing it in an article on my blog this weekend. Having a name for it is so empowering. You can say, oh, I have trouble speaking up at work because I have traumatic invalidation from what happened to me in my childhood while I was in that family scapegoat, family identified patient role. If you got something out of this video, I hope you'll share it with others and click the the thumbs up there, so YouTube knows you'd like to see more videos of mine, and do subscribe if you haven't. I will be, within the next few weeks, starting to address a lot of subscriber questions and get a few quick videos out, maybe a few a week, just answering different subscriber questions. So thank you all for your patience while I figure out the best way I can see clients and do life and still make videos, because I'm a one-woman shop for the most part. So thanks for being so patient. I value your presence here. I value all of your comments, your community involvement, and I'll look forward to seeing you next week.